Senior Report thanks Edmund Besch of Bristol Burgess Insurance Agency, 65 East Main Street, Westfield, for his generous grant to provide news to seniors. Funding is provided by a grant from New York State Senator Catherine M. Young, representing Western New York's 57th District with a local office in Olean. Funding for Senior Report is provided in part by a grant from Andrew Goodell, Assemblyman for the 150th District of the New York State Assembly. Dave Cass and Rick Newell provide funding on behalf of the Lakeview Hotel and Restaurant at the Docks, located on Water Street near the lake in Mayville. Senior Report with Reed Powers thanks Westfield's Schultz Chevy for a generous grant to inform seniors of important news. Over 50 years of service to Westfield by Chevrolet, Schultz Chevy across from the school. The physicians of Jamestown Primary Care are happy to sponsor the Senior Report. From the Access Channel 5 television studio in Mayville, it's Senior Report with Reed Powers. Senior Report is broadcast live throughout northern Chautauqua County on Saturday morning from 9 to 10 a.m. each week. Call in and share a thought, make a comment, ask a question, or simply wish someone a happy birthday on Chautauqua County's only live call-in senior program. Since 1995, Reed has been bringing viewers hundreds of interesting guests, informing the community on a variety of subjects. Here's the host of the show, Reed Powers.
And good morning out there. What a beautiful day in Chautauqua County. We had a lot of rain too, which was just terrific for our crops and our flowers and everything that we put in. It's just fantastic. And we're going to just have more of the same, a little rain, a little sunshine, which is just terrific. We have a very interesting guest with us today. We haven't had him on before. His name is Art Kinney, and he's going to be talking about history up here in Chautauqua County, and he's going to focus a little bit on Jamestown, and we have an awful lot to talk about. I've noticed the news lately, the Boy Scout image of Obama seems to be fading. The IRS is attacking people that are against his philosophy, persecuting the IRS, the Internal Revenue. And of course they've been prying into the reporters' notes, their email and so forth, but then we find out a little bit later they're prying into everybody's email. He reauthorized and authorized under the Bush program, which started with Bush, whereby in 7 years now they've been prying into our email without our knowledge, without court warrants. And they also are prying into our telephone conversations, listening in on them, taping them. And this has been going on for 7 years. And Obama, which promised a government that would be transparent, biggest secret they've kept until suddenly it came out. So guys, I think it's time we let them know we prefer our privacy. They claim, it's not going to affect everybody. Well, who knows what these critters will do. You don't trust your government on this one, guys. The Congress decides, right. This is a Congress that can't even decide on the time of day. Okay, guys, a lot of things happening. I hope they don't get into our Facebook too much, but they are going into our social media, checking us out, writing us down, getting our phone calls. Every day it goes on. Obama say, it's just the bad guys. Yeah, right. How do they know? and the people overseas that are calling in, right, and a lot of good it did in Boston, of course. Well, they said there was a lack of communication. We have a SAFE Act in New York State, which there are signs going up everywhere, which was an outrageous violation of our constitutional rights to possess and bear arms, and it was passed unconstitutionally, wrongfully in New York State, slipping it through in the night, in early morning, without any public information about it, without any public comment, and without going through committees. Cuomo just shoved it through. And now you can't even buy a box of 22s without going through the big check, which you pay for, I might add, and all kinds of crazy stuff. You can't own a gun with over 7 shots in there or something. It's nonsense. And they say, well, this is not really inhibiting your right to bear arms. Like hell it isn't. We ought to raise a rumpus about that. I know Kathy Young is trying to get it repealed very hard, but it looks like the downstaters who don't know diddly squat are going to try to continue it. And they, of course, say it's a firearm, a long arm law. And how many people have been killed, according to Annie Goodell, our assemblyman, with long arms in New York State this year, in the last year or so? 0. Oh, but those long arms are so dangerous. And incidentally, they're mostly with short arms, and the short arm killings are done with guns that are illegal anyway, which already have heavy Sullivan law and other laws and 15 different gun laws to prevent people from getting them. You got to go through all kinds of nonsense and expense to own a short arm. Oh, they just go down on the corner and buy one for $50 or $100. Lake Chautauqua, right here in Chautauqua County. The chestnuts are growing. There's a new blight growing in the lake, and it's spreading like wildfire. And they're asking people to keep an eye out for them, and don't try to go in and eradicate them. Just tell the authorities where they are, and they will proceed to try to get rid of them. But I have a feeling this is a losing battle. When you try to intervene with Mother Nature is going to give you a boot in the rear, and that's what's going to happen here. We're going to have water chestnuts growing all over, and the only thing to do is to learn to eat them. All right. I got to put my cheaters on here because I have one more note I want to tell you about the fishing. The walleye fishing is coming on, the perch, they're getting their limits, but under the Safe Boating Act, which was just enforced and beefed up in New York State, you can't have a boat, you can't run a boat now without taking the course. It's an 8-hour course, you got to pay for it. Yeah. And a lot of people don't even know that. This is nonsense in Pennsylvania. You can take your boat over in Pennsylvania, you're fine. And in some cases, most cases, including Pennsylvania, you can take this course online. No, not in New York State with all its laws and obstructions to hunting and fishing. No, you can't take it online. You've got to go and take it and sit in a chair somewhere and spend 8 hours there. Bring your own dinner. Good luck. And incidentally, it takes place on Saturdays in most cases. And you know where I am at that time of day. It runs 8 in the morning. All right. No online in New York State. What do you think of that? Most states you can do it online anyway, at your leisure. Don't forget the YouTube. Well, Art Kinney, who is our guest, also volunteers at the little store they have for cats on the corner of Market, just off the corner of Market Street and Main Street in Westfield, across from the big bank there. And he tells us they just have a great operation. And I'll let him talk a little bit about that. The North County Canine Society and the Cat Rescue Society are doing some wonderful things for our wonderful pets. And I don't know of any other strictly cat organization there is for saving cats, but I hear they save up to $300 a year, which is just terrific. This is incidentally Adopt a Cat Month. Yeah, go out and adopt a cat. And the cat place over in Westfield, what do they call it? The Kitty?
Thrifty Kitty.
Thrifty Kitty. They have cats there, and you can adopt them for whatever you want to pay. They say pay whatever you want. Usually the adoption fee is $40, which includes about $150 worth of shots and spaying and altering and whatever it takes, which is expensive. And they only charge $40. Can't beat that. But you can pay whatever you want. Just pay $1 if you want to. Okay. Adopt a cat. They're the most wonderful little animals to have. They're so gregarious and loving and sweet, and they sit and purr in your lap, and they jump into bed with you and purr you to sleep. It's just fantastic. I've got 2 of them myself. All right, guys, enough said. We have a public service announcement for you, and then we're going to hear from this guy. He shoots from the hip. John Doc Hamels. Okay, here's for you a public service announcement.
I'm Jessica Mendoza, U.S. Olympic gold and silver medalist. I never take my eyesight for granted, and neither should you. Doesn't matter how old you are, you could be losing your vision to glaucoma without knowing it. Take care of your sight. Schedule regular eye exams for yourself and those you love. Call 1-800-437-2423 or go to ahaf.org for free information and publications from National Glaucoma Research.
Yeah, I get my eye exams. I used to. I've now got, I don't have my own eyes anymore. They took my lenses away, and so I've got plastic lenses, which don't adjust quite as much. They can't adjust, but they work pretty well. Gives me good far sight, I'll tell you that right now, but for up close, as you've noted, it's the cheaters. You get a choice of having the lenses adjusted for up close reading or for distance, and most people opt for the distance, I know that. And you always have to carry a pair of readers with you. But I go to Walmart. Walmart has a eye place there, and it's fantastic. They give you a very good examination, a thorough medical and prescription examination. And they told me, incidentally, early on, they said, you know, you have a problem here. You have that stuff that screens everything off. And so I had to go in for laser surgery and have them removed. In the meantime, you get your prescription there and have them write it out, and then you send it into Zuni, Z-U-N-N-I, or Zenni, Z-E-N-N-I. And one of our photographers are here right now, Randy, has a pair of glasses from them. $12, including lenses, frames. You get a choice of 1 million frames, including some very nice knockoffs. And you send in your prescription. A few days later, you get it back. You get a nice pair of glasses back, and any frame you want, and the lenses and so forth. They're plastic and fantastic. $12 and change. Forget the $300 some people are paying. I don't have any insurance, so I'm stuck. I have to do it the way I do it. So there you go, guys. Go over to. Incidentally, I believe the examination is about a half or a third what it would cost you elsewhere. If you go to Walmart, I think it's $51 or $52. Last time I looked, may have gone up slightly. And then Zunny, $12 more. There you go. Okay, we got a guy here waiting to talk. He's been over in the old sod for a while, and he comes back. I think he has an Irish brogue now. I think I suspected that. John Hamels, you're on, John.
Well, top of the morning to you, Reed, and to you, Art. You can't help but get a little bit of Irish when you're over there. But you know, Reed, you know, here in America we have different, accents and so forth. And it's the same thing over there. If you go in the north, they say words a particular way. If you go in the south, they say it in a particular way. And if you go to the west, to the east, and so forth. And there was a couple of guys going, I have no idea what they just said. So that we said the tour guys, I don't know either. So it's just like when we go down south and they speak in a particular slow or very fast dialect, it's the same. Well, Reed, I'm really glad to be back to the show, and I really thought about how I was going to be able to call in, but being 5 hours away and on a tour bus, it just wasn't going to work. But anyways, you know, I was listening to your opening remarks about gun rights and voting and so forth, and I was thinking about, well, how could I tie this in with my trip that I just had in Ireland with my family? And, you know, we here in America, them over in Ireland and Scotland and India and so forth, fought the British rule, and so much of that was the screwing down of control on people. I'm really concerned right now, to tell you the truth, about in our country. I mean, it's like, how much more are we going to saddle people with rules and regulations? And not that I'm an anarchist, but I'm an observer of social process here, and I'm very concerned right now, and I know that you've been echoing that a lot lately, but that's just a little political statement for the moment. But Ireland is a beautiful country, folks, and if you haven't been there, but I always tell people first, travel to the United States first, and then when you have time, go to the other countries. But when you hear our guests coming up soon here, and just things that we've talked about over the years, the connections between whether it's Ireland or Germany or England or Spain or wherever our families are from, this is what made our country what it is. And the Irish connection to especially Northeast United States is just incredible, and the connectivity that continues today. For me, and we were talking about history a little bit beforehand, my family, part of my family, my father's mother's side, so my maternal grandmother was from Ireland, and we got to visit the homeland and the neighborhood, the exact piece of ground where my grandmother grew up and so forth. And my dad had a special day there, Reed. And Jeff, if you want to show the first picture, I know he's going to show it here in a second, but he celebrated his 90th birthday the day before we left, and so there we are in the hotel.
Well, the guy second from the right there, I see him.
The guy in the middle.
Oh, the guy in the middle.
That's my sister-in-law Peg, my brother Bob, my dad, myself, and my wife Barb. But Dad turned 90, and my dad never met a stranger there the whole time. Everybody came up and just was loving and warm and friendly, and it's like going to Canada in a sense. Everybody speaks the same language, and just a really lot of fun. And but then I was going to show you another little slice of Ireland, and if you want to show that second picture, this is the Cliffs of Moher. Have you been there, Reed?
No, I haven't. Unfortunately, I've seen Ireland from 35,000 feet up.
Right. Well, the Cliffs of Moher it's breathtaking. It's absolutely unbelievable. Where you're standing way, way up high, and you look out, and there's the let's see, that would be the Atlantic Ocean, but these are cliffs that go 700 feet down, and as I tell people, it reminds me of Niagara Falls on steroids without the water coming down. I mean, it just goes on forever, and I can't imagine, the Vikings trying to come in there and attack the country. But the Cliffs of Moher, just beautiful. Now, I don't want to take too much more time, Reed, but folks, you've been watching this show since, 1995, and Reed has a tendency to maybe exaggerate.
Never.
A little bit, just a little bit.
Never.
So we're in the engineering room all the time, listening to the show and taking the phone calls, and we'll look up and go, "Is that true? Is he making that up, or is that true?" Well, folks, I'm here to tell you right now that Reed Powers is an honest man, and I have evidence of that. Reed talks about his family coming from Ireland. He mentioned it earlier, and so roll it, Jeff. Here's the evidence. There you go. Powers Gold Label.
Powers is like Smith in Ireland.
It was Powers this, Powers that.
Right, and Powers Irish Whiskey is the top-selling whiskey.
There you go. And so I just wanted you to know, I kept my eye open for your family, and they were usually by the pubs. So anyways, folks, get out there, travel, get off that couch, get your family together, do some fun things. And I just had a great time in Ireland. Back to you, Reed.
Well, the Irish saved history, too. You weren't here when I mentioned it, but back in the Middle Ages, they tried to burn all the books and all the manuscripts.
For sure.
And the only place they couldn't get them, because they were scared of the Irish, was Ireland. And the monasteries there had safely secured and put away all the old books of information, knowledge, and imparted over the centuries, and they saved them. And so when the Inquisition and all that stuff was over, they trotted out all the history of the world, which they had.
There's just thousands of little mounds of stone that are all over the countryside, and I can well imagine how they could have easily done that. Oh, there was one more thing you should check out if you're in Ireland. I forgot to mention, you talk about old. If we talk about the pyramids being old. I stood in Newgrange. You know what Newgrange is?
It is a stone formation, and it does have pyramids, which have long fallen, but they are still there, and they were 1,000 years before the Egyptians even started to build pyramids.
That's exactly right, Reed. In this particular celestial pyramid or building was way before the pyramids, and there's a little window, and on December 21st, the sun hits it, comes up this walkway, and illuminates this this chamber inside this building, if you will, stone building, and it's like a festival kind of a thing of pagan worship of the sun, but absolutely unbelievable. And as people may or may not know, Columbus did not discover America. The Vikings were not the first ones here to come from that side. Obviously, the Native Indians were here first, but St. Brendan from Ireland was here in 600. So, back to you
Incredible.
once more. I'm leaving. Goodbye. I gotta go man the phones.
Okay. Give us a call if you want about anything you feel like talking about. The number is on the post there, 753-5225 or 753-JACK if you can't remember all of our numbers. Okay, we have a little senior news. I just have to drop this off. I wanted to mention the Great Belt seniors who are very, very active. And they are delivering a whole bunch of non-perishables to the food various groups. And they have exercise classes, which are very popular, and they help each other out when needed, it says. They have a readers' theater on Wednesday, 10:30 a.m. to share stories and have fun. They will not meet in July and August, but will start up again September 4th on Wednesday. Great Belt Seniors, that's Fredonia, Pomfret area. They're going to take a bus trip June 11th. I'm sure you can jump on it. They usually have room for somebody else. And they will provide water and donuts on the bus trip. They're going to the Niagara Casino, and coming up very shortly, that'll be June 12th. And Lockport, they're going June 12th. And call Junior Marino if you're interested about any of these trips they still have before they close down. Lakeshore Seniors, they meet at the Dunkirk Senior Center, which is an incredible setup there. It's beautiful. They are buying an 8-foot dining table for more dining because they have more and more members over there. And they're going to have an August 9th picnic at Midway Park with the Office of the Aging. There's a huge picnic coming up at Midway with the Office of the Aging. I've got to get rid of that little tuft of hair sticking out there. I don't know, that's better. The wind and everything. Kitchen committee for the next meeting, which is June 12th. Carol Kozlowski and Pat Kozlowski. I wonder if they're related. The Pioneer Social Club, they're up in that beautiful land of Forestville. That's a gorgeous place up there. And they do a lot of interesting things. They say happy birthday for they sing happy birthday for their members who have a birthday coming up. Lois Benzoni and Barb Tower, happy birthday to you. And they're having a big Mother and Father's Day luncheon together, and it will be held at the Sunset Bay Restaurant, beautiful place incidentally, on June 13th at 1 p.m. So if you want to get involved, go over there and say, hey, let me in on this wonderful dinner here. They're going to hold a safe driving course, a great course. I advise everybody to take it. It'll drop your insurance rates 10%, some of them, and it will also provide you with some good tips. I've taken it myself several times. Got to take it every 3 years for your insurance. Next meeting, July 1st. And we'll meet there, the people doing the refreshments, which are the most important part of a meeting. Carol Pierce, Dorothy Schneider, and Norma Stewart. They're telling me that I'm late on the news, and it's all over, so we're finished, and I'm going to have to move right on. We have with us an eminent historian of Chautauqua County who's written a couple of books which will be published, I assume, shortly. And he particularly concentrates on Jamestown. Now, Jamestown has a really living history. We were not going to just talk about Jamestown, though, but it is quite a fabulous place. Remember, the Swedes came into Jamestown, and it was heavily Sweden, and they were furniture makers, master furniture makers. So for many, many, many decades, century almost or more, they were the standard of furniture making in this area. Of course, now the furniture makers, most of them have left. They go to China, to Mexico, where they can get real cheap labor. One of them left Mayville and bought an old boat and had it all made up and built a furniture factory on it. And they go in and pick up supplies and coolies in China. People they pay very little to. And then they go out and make furniture and then bring it back and sell it. And they make a bunch. What's that? You got 3 calls from Chinese people? All right. So anyway, we got with us the eminent and very well versed in history, Art Kinney. And Art is originally was Jamestown, and he's moved up a little north, and he's in Westfield now. And he also volunteers for the community in many ways. He's got a lot of different posts. One of them, which impresses me, is he's the manager of the store, the Thrifty Kitty in Westfield, which supports the kitties there. Upstairs, they've got a whole bunch of beautiful little kittens and cats that need a home, and they're all tame, they're all socialized, they don't give you any wild cats, and they're all got their shots, and they all been fixed and neutered and everything, so they're all perfectly wonderful cats. And what a person, what a wonderful little pet to have, to come to the door and greet you with mews when you get home, and jump in your lap and purr you, and purr and purr. Oh, and they are so clean. Cats clean themselves meticulously. Okay, Art, you're on. I talked enough. Tell me, where are you from?
Well, I'm from Jamestown.
You were born there and raised there?
Born and raised there. I come from a family of 11 children. I'm the oldest.
11 children.
And I was with Carnahan's Menswear for 38 years.
I'm sure you're aware there was a Carnahan Shears right in
There was
Westfield.
Carnahan Shears in Westfield. I tell you that Carnahan started out in 1924 when the Carnahan brothers from Northeast went over to Jamestown, and they purchased a men's store. It was located down on Main Street by the Viaduct, and it was called Carr Brothers. And Carr Brothers was similar to Carnahan's. They merchandised quality brand name merchandise, offered great service, and the Carnahan brothers bought the business, but that was in 1924. Then in 1930, they had a change of name sale, and this was the interesting thing. And I had the ad in my office when I was with the firm. And on that sale, they proclaimed that they were going to have the same service, the same quality merchandise at the same prices, but it was going to be Carnahan Shears. Now, Carnahan's, we had the brothers, but then you also had Carl Shear from Westfield was a part of the firm. And they did a great business. And then in the middle part of the 1930s, the store continued to grow, and they had to relocate, and they went to the popular spot that many people know them well, was the corner of 2nd and Main Street, and it was Carnahan Shears. And they stayed there until the middle of it was the early part of the 1960s, about 63, that they relocated up on 3rd Street in the Hotel Samuels. And I went in the Army in 1965, and I came home in 1967. And
Where were you in the Army? Where did they put you?
I was at Fort Carson, Colorado the whole time.
Oh, that's a nice
It was
post.
a beautiful area.
Yeah.
And I came back to Jamestown, and I went into Carnahan's to buy some clothes, civilian clothes. I didn't have much civilian clothes. And a fine gentleman waited on me, and he was the vice president general manager, and I didn't know him at the time. And in the course of waiting on me, he asked me, he said, and I had my uniform on, and he said, "Soldier, are you in need of a job?" And I said I was, and he said, "Well," he says, "we're interested in a Stockway. Would you be interested?" And I said yes. And
Before you know it.
and before I knew it, he said this was December 1st that I started, and he let me know that my job was only until New Year's Eve, because it was a part-time job for the holidays. And then he came to me on New Year's Eve and said he enjoyed me working there and wanted to know if I wanted a full-time position with the firm. And I was with him from 1967 all the way to 2005, 38 years.
Well, most of us remember Carnahan's. Well, also remember Mr. Grafe. He ran it.
Mr. who?
Grafe.
Oh, okay.
He lived on right next to the blacksmith. Not right next. It used to be the blacksmith shop down there, but just up from the wood stove place right across. His house is for sale. I noticed.
Right.
It's for auction. You know, sometimes a house goes down for auction. It's very cheap.
Reed, I wanted to tell you that not many people know this, but one time there was over 8 Carnahan Shear stores around the area.
No kidding.
And
Well, I still remember it quite well. I think it was Ron Grafe who ran it. And the reason I remember in particular is they had a big dog, one of those giant French poodles, a black French poodle, and his name was Pavel.
Oh.
And they couldn't handle him, but we had a farm. We lived down where the sugar shack is now. And not a farm, it was never farmed by us. And so I adopted Pavel, and he was the sweetest, most friendly dog, and he used to just lie with me, and he'd talk to me, and he was the greatest thing. And, you know, French poodles are very smart dogs, the big ones, not the little tiny toys. I don't know how smart they are. I think they're inbred. But at any rate, that's the way it goes. Now, you have a little bit of history on Dunkirk, on Jamestown. The square that was there, which is really a triangle or something?
Let's start out that area.
Quadrant?
It was called Brooklyn Square, and it was really not a square, it was a triangle.
Yeah.
And in it was in the early teen years, President Roosevelt came to Jamestown on one of his presidential stops, and in honor of that, the city of Jamestown chose to change the name from Brooklyn Square to Roosevelt Square.
Which outraged everybody.
It did.
Especially the Republicans.
And eventually that name was changed back after the outcry from the community to Brooklyn Square. Brooklyn Square was a unique place. It was a triangle. It had big buildings all around the triangle down there.
It was in the middle of Jamestown, right?
In the heart of downtown Jamestown. You know, in 1967, around that era, urban renewal came into being, and the town fathers sought to remove that entire Brooklyn Square. I can remember when I tore down all the buildings, it was like a bomb went off down there. And I've always said in all my talks and everything when I do that when they took Brooklyn Square out of downtown Jamestown, they took the heart out of Jamestown.
Really broke everybody's heart, huh?
We have a Brooklyn Square today, and it's fine down there, but it's not what the old Brooklyn Square was like. And there was many, many memories, and one of those memories was was going to all these different stores in the square. There were some unique stores. In particular, I want to talk about the Chautauqua hardware store. And what made them so unique is that they had the old-fashioned look. If you went in there behind the checkout counter, they had a great big wooden elevator, and it was open. And the sales clerk, if you needed something and it was upstairs in the storeroom, he would get in the elevator, close the gate, and up he would go. He waved goodbye to you as he went up through the ceiling to the upper floors. And it wouldn't be long, he'd be coming back down with the item. And I always remember that. And then the other thing that they had that was so unique in retail is that they had a car system in which a little metal car was at the checkout, and you wrote up your receipt, took your cash, put it in the car, and it shot up the pulleys across the ceiling into the office. And a little while later, the car would come back down the pulley and would be your change. Bigelow's department store had the same system, only theirs was tubes that shot with air.
Tubes,
vacuum tubes.
You remember? I still remember those. You put they shoved the little cylinder into the tube, and it whoosh, and it disappeared in an instant.
And at every area, you had tubes. So if you looked at Bigelow's ceilings, you saw all these tubes from all these different checkout places, and you were constantly hearing these cars shooting back and forth. It was just kind of unique.
Well, I'll tell you, the past history of Chautauqua County is fantastic. As you know, Westfield founded the Republican Party.
Right.
William Seward and the gang, Eason and several other people there, bigwigs, founded it, and they had their first meeting, but they didn't have they had so many people coming to it, they didn't have room for them, so they met over in a big hall in Mayville. And they founded the Republican Party. They founded the Republican paper, which is the Westfield Republican, which is read all over the county. Used to all over the state, all over the country. It used to be basically the voice of the Republican Party. And of course, William Seward came to grief because he went to this convention, and he had a trainload of people. I mean, thousands, not thousands, but an awful lot of people, heavy delegates. And he went to the building where they had the convention in Illinois, I think it was in Chicago. And they called it the teepee because it was sort of teepee built just especially for the convention. And of course, it's an old story, but When they got there, they found Pinkertons all over the place. I wondered what they were there for. And they were shuttled off to the corner somewhere away from the rest of the delegates. And Lincoln was the other forerunner, but Seward had it sewed up. He was the heavy winner. And what happened was they had a band come through, and they were all dressed in uniform and everything, and they were playing songs and sort of eulogizing Seward and his gang. And they marched around following the band, and the band went outside, and they marched around the center and everything and got to the door. It was locked.
It was locked.
Now, many of the delegates were locked out now. And as they were pounding on the doors, they called the paddy wagons, and they came in and started arresting. In the meantime, the voting has started. And Seward was a heavy favorite, but he didn't have the plurality he needed. So they voted again, and he lost a little bit there. This is even without all his delegates and being there, being locked out, clamoring at the door. Lincoln crept up on him, and a couple of votes later, Lincoln won. And that's how Lincoln became the president. The first Republican president, I might add. If you can believe that story, it is fact and true. People in the back room. Okay, Art Kinney, talking a little bit about Chautauqua, about the history here. What else do you know about Chautauqua history?
Let me start from the very beginning.
Well, let's see now. There was this place called Eden.
Now, what I want to tell you about is at the age of 14, our family lived in close to downtown Jamestown. We were probably about 4 blocks from the downtown. And at 14 years of age, I went wandering off, and I discovered this magnificent downtown Jamestown. Do you realize at one time in Jamestown there was over 700 stores, which would include barbershops, restaurants, department stores, the 5 and dime stores, and offices in the upper floors, and
You could say that about almost any of the towns, villages, and cities in Chautauqua County.
That's right.
Because they had the 5 and dimes in the old stores and everything.
Right.
I guess Walmart has taken over the 5 and dime business.
But they don't have the same kind of merchandise or the prices like they did back then.
Yeah, well, actually, Walmart's prices, I've noticed, they seem to be creeping up.
Yeah.
But then again, everybody's prices are creeping up, excepting Social Security, which doesn't give us a real cola, and you're going to be eating cat food. Cat food, seniors, because you have not got money to buy food anymore. It's pills or food, because of the fact that the government has decided to not really give you a true cola. You realize, Art, that people are getting 47 cents on the dollar that they used to get with Social Security because of the failure of the government to keep up with the cost of living. And here we have, do you know what the inflation rate is? 5%, they say, right now. And do you think there's any kind of an increase for your Social Security that's meaningful? Nothing. And so the seniors are in real trouble. They can't buy food. There's a nutrition problem, which even the AARP has recognized, and they have a plan to help out with food banks and things for seniors. But they aren't getting very well. Okay, we got a couple of phone calls. You want to take one?
Sure, go ahead.
Here you go. We got a call coming right in. The caller. It says they want to wait. They've got to think over what they're going to say to you. He's here. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, Reed. I was wondering about the steamships that used to be on the Chautauqua Lake. I know we have the Chautauqua Belt now. I was wondering how many used to be on Chautauqua Lake.
Yeah, how about that?
That's one of my talks that I do, is we talk about the Great White Fleet. There was approximately 7 steamships that went from one end of the lake to the other, and one of the big ones, I think it was the city of Jamestown, was so big that it would accommodate 3,000 passengers.
You're kidding.
Back then.
That must have been huge.
First thing is, if you ever see the early pictures of Brooklyn Square, you will see in that picture all 7 of these steamships all jockeyed around down there, and they managed to all fit in that down there, not Brooklyn Square, down at the boat landing, and
which is a little bit south of Brooklyn Square.
Right, and there's some great history about those ships, and eventually most of them met their ending with a fire.
Really?
A lot of them would burn. And
Why would they burn? What's going
well,
on?
they were steamships, and they had these boilers on them, and everything. But yeah, there was about 7 of them, and the city of Cincinnati, city of Buffalo, city of Pittsburgh, they were all named after cities, and they were really 1 and 2 and 3 stories high, and they had. It's just a fascinating history to
I
get
think
into.
the Chautauqua Bill is about that high, isn't it?
Yeah.
And
Where would you be able to find more information on steamships and other history around Chautauqua County?
Are you from Westfield?
Yes.
If you go into CJ's, I donated to them 6 pictures or 7 pictures, but they only have 6 of them up of those very steamships. And if you go in there at the end of the restaurant, you can sit at a table and look at those, and you'll have a perfect image of what all those steamships were. You could go to the library and you'll find a lot of information in their local history of the steamships. There is a book out on the steamships of Chautauqua Lake.
well, little known to the people who are living around Chautauqua Lake. It used to be a highway to the United States because boats would come into Chautauqua Lake. They'd go down. There was a little river at the end of it. They'd go through that river. They'd hit the Ohio, and then finally the Mississippi River, and then down the Mississippi to most places, to all the way to New Orleans.
Right.
And they'd start in Westfield, incidentally. They'd come down the lake, and they'd have to portage on the Portage Trail down today, and they're going to start a portage trail that you can walk. And they would go up over the hill on muleback or whatever it is, and they would take a raft at the top of the hill, which they built there in many cases. And then they would go down Lake Chautauqua, and away they went.
Right.
Last question I have. How many museums and where are they located in Chautauqua County? I find out more information about stuff.
I didn't catch that.
Westfield has one.
What's that?
Museums.
Oh, museums. The Fenton Historical Society in Jamestown is an excellent place to go to. And I understand they just opened a new museum over in the Bemis Point area that covers all this information that you're after on the Chautauqua Lake and the steamboats. And I don't really remember what the name of the new place is.
Well, there's a museum right in the middle of the park in Westfield, which incidentally is surrounded by troops.
Right.
There's
today.
an invasion. The Civil War is going to be reenacted, or part of it, the battles, right in that park in the middle of Westfield. And can you believe it or not, they have cannons, they have rifles, they have skirmishes, they have the tents all set up. It looks like a real Civil War encampment. They have the full uniforms, sometimes genuine uniforms, genuine rifles, and it's incredible. So don't forget today and tomorrow to stop off at Westfield and see the Civil War reenactments. There you go, guys.
All right. Well, thank you, Reed.
Thank you very much, and I wish you good luck in your chasing of those ships. I'm sure there is a lot of material around about them, and you might go over to the park in Westfield, and you will see that they do have an incident.
I might suggest that if she wanted to, she can get a group of friends together for a nice evening and invite me to come in, and we would sit in an informal session, and I would show them pictures, all the different aspects of the lake and the steamboats back then, and we'll talk about it and have their reaction to that.
Is the Chautauqua Belle still a real steamboat? I know it's a side wheeler.
It's just Taco Bell, yes. Randy shaking yes.
Okay.
I was on it several times, but I haven't been on it since it's been refurbished. So.
Well, they have dinners on board. You
Had
can
a
have a
real-
full dinner there, and everything's fantastic. Randy has been on it a number of times. He loves it.
Randy loves anything.
I know. Well, he's big on ships. You know that he has a license to run the ferry across from Bemis? Did you know that?
Right.
He's a ferry master and a captain. And he also was quite involved with this rescue of the sea lion, which now needs re-rescue, I've noticed. I hope that somebody, maybe a new generation, takes over down there and paints it and caulks it and loves it and cares for it, because it sits in Barcelona, kind of lonely now, and it needs a little bit of paint, I think. Sea lion.
I thought they just painted the Taco Bell. Didn't they
No, I'm
just-
talking about the sea lion.
Oh, the sea lion, I'm
which
sorry.
is a boat down in Chautauqua, in Chautauqua County, which is down in Barcelona, where it's, right now it sits quietly on, I guess some sort of a platform, and it's.
I was glad they rescued that and brought that back home where it belonged.
Yeah, well, it was
in Buffalo.
It was 10 feet below the surface
Yeah,
at one point. It had sunk, and they just left it. It's gone, it's out of mind, out of sight, we don't have to worry about it.
Rita, I wanted to cover the area that for the past 25 years I have been going around Chautauqua County and Jamestown talking to various elderly groups and sharing the different histories and everything.
You say Jamestown all the time. Do you do that outside of Jamestown?
I do it outside. I was, last year I did a number of programs at the Ripley Library, and it was taking a trip down memory lane of Ripley. I did for Absolute over here in Westfield. I did about 6 programs taking them down memory lane of Westfield, New York, and I have pictures and everything.
Okay, well, great. We'll follow that up. We have a couple of calls. You want to take a call?
Take another call.
Hey, good morning, caller. Thank you for waiting.
Good morning. Good morning to your guest. Mr. Kinney, I was curious. Could you tell us about the Jamestown area as far as what was the main products that they made? I know that they did furniture early on, but did that carry on over the years, or did they diversify into other areas?
Let me preface this and tell you that Jamestown was known for the Swedish immigration and along with the Italians. And the Italian community brought to Jamestown many fine programs, factories and everything. One of the big things that they did was they were brick makers. In Jamestown, many of the streets had brick streets, and the Italians would make these bricks, and then there was the other group that would go in and lay these back-breaking hours of laying brick after brick after brick. The Swedish immigrant, which my background is Swedish, they brought in all the fine furniture, and they expanded in other areas, but many fine cabinet makers and everything came into the area.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
There you go. So they sell furniture, cabinet makers.
Jamestown was very rich at one time in the industrial field. Even in the automobile field, there were some programs there.
GM or what?
I can't recall what it was.
Well, we have a long history up in this county of caring for our people who are living in Chautauqua County, and we also have a history in Jamestown.
Yes.
But you concentrate on Jamestown, but I love to talk about the upstate area. I mean the up-county area.
This area up here.
And now you said you would do talks.
I did talks.
For free?
I do it for free. No, I do it for free. I'll come in and share an afternoon or an evening with a group, and it's done where I do about a 15-20 minute talk, and then we open it up to discussions. And let me tell you, one time at Fenton, Jamestown, I appeared at Tanglewood Manor, and my subject for the afternoon with them was on Celeron Park that I do. And an elderly gentleman raised his hand during the presentation, and he informed us that he used to operate the carousel at the old Celeron Park.
I hear that's for sale now. Celeron Park.
Yes.
And let's hope that maybe the state buys it and makes a real park out of it the way they did Midway. That'd be fantastic. I hate to lose it.
Okay.
And we all remember the tornado that went through there and killed a woman.
Killed a woman.
Yeah.
I remember that. But anyhow, this gentleman gave me that information, and then I went on and talked a little more, and the lady raised her hand. Now, this is fascinating. The guy lived on the first floor of Tanglewood. This lady raised her hand, and she lived on the second floor of Tanglewood. And she said that she used to sell tickets for the carousel at Celeron Park.
So you have the rider,
we
the
had
driver, and the ticket
the
seller.
operator, and we had the ticket selling agent lady. And I had a dialogue between them, and she told what her maiden name was, and he remembered her, and then he told a little about himself. She remembered him, and they got acquainted at the Tanglewood, and they gave us a whole afternoon of interesting stories about Celeron Park.
Incidentally, Art, have you ever gone to Ox Roast in Westfield?
Yes.
Been there forever. I remember going there as a little kid. And it's a fantastic set, just a wonderful, wonderful day out. It's a big picnic for the whole area. Everybody comes down. They have rides, they have games for the kids, they have games for the adults, they have ox roast, which is a delicious sandwich, a big thick sandwich full of wonderful beef. and all kinds of other tricks and fun things. And they have a beer tent. They have rides. They have not really rides, but you can ride around. They have a pavilion. Ah, what a place! Oxford, I think it's the 14th coming up. It's the middle
Coming
of,
up.
Yeah, it's the middle of July, and don't miss that if you can. We have another couple of calls here.
Let's take another call.
Let's take another. Good morning, caller. Thank you for waiting.
Hey, good morning, Reed. Good morning, Art. I started out in Jamestown, and then I moved out to Mayville area several years ago. And I guess I know all the Jamestown stuff that I grew up with, the old swimming holes and stuff. But it'd be interesting, living out in Westfield, Mayville area. I mean, where'd people go swimming, picnicking? And there's one big concern in Ripley. We used to go out to the Mum Gardens in Northeast, and there was this huge rocking chair. I think across from where probably the post office would be in Ripley, and I've always wanted to get information on that, but nobody seems to remember it. Do you have any photos or any information on the huge rocking chair, if it was like an antique company or anything?
Nothing comes to mind what I have. I tell you, Jamestown, the public transportation was the steamboats. People used to get on these steamboats and they would ride up to either Midway, or they'd go to Chautauqua Institution, or they'd go beyond. And once they got up into the Mayville area, they'd get off the boat, and many of them would get on a trolley and head off even up into Ripley.
That was on the JWNW, wasn't it?
That's right.
Now, these trolleys were the train track kind, or were they just on the highways?
No, they were trolleys. They had their own track system, and they went around the lake. One trolley system would go up one side of the lake, and the other trolley system went up on the other side of the lake. And I do a whole program on trolleys and the different kinds of trolleys they had, and some of the unique things that occurred.
They called it the JWNW. It was the Jamestown, Westfield, and then this Westfield Northeast or something like that. But
Northwest.
JWNW, they always used to say Jesus walked. No wonder.
They had a lot of accidents, didn't they? I think I've read in the papers in 50 years ago, 75 years ago today. And but I don't know, in Westfield, though, I guess as a kid we would pick grapes. We'd go from Jamestown up there and get like 25 to 35 cents a grape. And back then they had no porta-johns. The people just went down in the ditch and used that for the bathrooms. And I remember that. I remember sitting down and watching the trains come through, and also Barcelona. They were probably my biggest memories, as a kid coming up the Westfield area. For Mayville, it was the motor vehicles and the little restaurant down here, the Mayville Diner. We always had to hit that. That was my memories.
Well, thank you, caller. We have another caller. Good morning, caller. You're on. Hello. I guess they got impatient and went away.
Before we go any further, Reed, let me shout out a hello to our friends at the Thrifty Kitty and the
the Thrifty Kitty
and the Westfield Cat.
Hey, Reed.
Hello, caller.
Go ahead.
Okay, we got your call.
Okay.
I got a question for the historian. Where does the bulk of his funding come from?
The bulk for what?
His funding for where does he get all his money from? Grants or the county or what?
There's no money. I just involved myself, and I'm still working on the project, and my eventually goal is I put together Let's Go Downtown with Art Kinney through the eyes of a 14-year-old in 1960. And I have a lot of articles in there. My eventually goal is to send that to printing, and it would come up in a book like this. This is a local author who wrote on the Lost Neighborhood. When the Brooklyn Square Urban Renewal went in there and took out the square, they took out 100 businesses, and they went in and took out a couple of neighborhoods. And these people, they have today a program called the Lost Neighborhood, and they meet every year. They come together, and Joan Lindquist has written this book, and she's doing another one on the Brooklyn Square, and she has asked 25 people to do essays with pictures, and I was chosen as one of them. And she informed me on email last night that her book is in print, gone to print, and she hopes to have it within a month or so, and she'll appear at the Prendergast Library for a book signing. And
Okay, well, thank you,
ahead.
caller.
Thank you.
We're going to squeeze in one more call, Art, okay?
Okay.
And then we'll have to, they'll run us off.
Okay.
Good morning, caller. Oh, she ran away. Well, you were saying?
Okay, let me hit this Westfield stray cat. June is National Adopt a Cat Month, and at the Westfield Stray Cat, the director has opened up that you can come in and you can name your own price on the adoption of a cat or a kitten. It could be from $1 to $100 or more.
There you go. I think I mentioned that because it's
mentioned that.
fantastic. Okay, we got that caller back. All right, you want to
Go
hear?
ahead, go ahead.
Okay, caller, he's here.
I would like to know about the trolley. It went around from Mayville all the way around Fredonia and went down through Jamestown and came back up through Mayville. My great aunt always talked about that.
The JW and NW. Jesus walked, no wonder.
You know, the trolley would leave Jamestown, and it made an official stop always at Midway Park. And then gave you an opportunity to spend time there, and then you get back on board, and you would go up to Mayville. And you would get off, and then you would get on the trolleys otherwise.
And incidentally, it stopped operating in early 1940s, I believe.
Yes.
It ran right up till then.
Okay.
Caller, you remember it? She does, but she went away.
Okay.
Well, I'll tell you, Art, it's a fascinating history around here, and I appreciate you coming over and telling us a little bit about
thank
it.
you.
You have certainly concentrated on Jamestown because that's where you were born and raised, right? And
Right.
lived there. How many years do you live there?
Pretty much most of my life.
Until you moved up here.
In 2005, I came to Westfield.
And which do you prefer now?
I love Westfield. My heart is in Jamestown, but I got to tell you, I love Westfield. I came to this community. I fell in love with it. I told my brother I wish I'd known about this. I'd have been up 10, 20 years earlier.
I was born and raised there. I knew all about it. And I'm
Okay.
still there, incidentally. I had to go away for work, but I'm back again. Now, I just got this horrendous sound here, Artie, and we're out of here.
We're out of here.
Okay, I want to give you 30 seconds just to finish
I
off.
just want to thank you for letting me come on.
Well, I
look
appreciate
forward
it.
to doing it again sometime.
I love to talk about the history of the area.
We could do one just on Westfield.
That's Westfield is so historic.
Yes.
It was the first of everything.
Okay.
And it is the heart of the grape belt. I mean, there are more grapes in Westfield. You realize that Welch's started in Westfield.
That's right.
You know, he started making communion wine
Right.
for the Methodists.
For the
and
Methodists.
They didn't like alcohol, so he made it just plain, and it was just grape juice, and they started to like it. And before you know, it's a $10 billion business now,
Thank you.
which is controlled by giant moguls who left left Westfield, went up to a little town in I think it's Massachusetts because of taxes and hassles and everything, and it's now concentrated up there. And interestingly enough.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Art. I would like to say thank you to everybody who's there and the callers. And that's the last caller. Sorry we can't get you in today, but you'll be back sometime, I'm sure.
We'll come back again.
All right. In the meantime, I want to thank the people who are really doing the job here. Chuck Kelsey, Devin Taylor, Chris Burt, Randy Burt, Chris Ramaker, Jeff Zook, and Don Zenz. And last but not least, John Hamels, just back from the old sod. Hey, the Irish always win and live on forever. Okay, may all of you have a beautiful day. May you dance in the sun. May all that is proud and true and noble abide with you. I'm Reed Powers. Thank you. Great show.
Enjoyed it.